Good evening. I would like to call to order the special meeting of the Newport News School Board for Tuesday, November the 9th, 2021. On behalf of the members of the school board and the superintendent, I welcome each of you present and watching. The COVID-19 pandemic and now the Delta variant continue to affect how we conduct business. Personal barriers are installed between members of the board, and our staff and visitors are masked and socially distanced in the auditorium and in our overflow areas. We are taking these steps to ensure the health and well-being of our staff and the public. We value and appreciate your partnership. We will begin tonight's meeting with the pledge. School board member Ms. Amon, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now that moves us on to item 2. So during this special meeting, we provide time for the public to address the school board. The school board recognizes that during the pandemic, some members of the public may not be able to join us in person. As advertised, citizens may submit comments via a web form, email, or voicemail up to 30 minutes prior to our meeting to be included in the official meeting record. For those of you joining us in person, the board considers this an opportunity to listen to your comments. Please understand that we will consider your concerns but get back to you at a later time. We ask that you comply with our 3-minute time limit. As you begin your comments, a green light will come on that side of the dais. A yellow light signals that you have 30 seconds remaining, and a red light beep indicates that your time is up, and we would ask you to wrap up your comments at that time. As your name is called, please come forward. I do have one card at this time, and the card is Mr. Michael Bartley.
Mr. Brown, members of the school board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I think we can all agree that everything we do is to educate our children to the best of the ability, and everything else is done here is just merely a mechanism to achieve that goal. And I'm an engineer, and a lot of what we do is we use trends, find what trends make things better. One of the strongest trends that I know of for education is instructional time. And the more instructional time you have, the better educational outcomes you're probably going to have. And I find an email that starts off that we had unfinished student learning from the superintendent. And I agree with that. And then I see what you want to do about it. It's not add more instructional hours, it's to add less. And it seems like that's just a farce. Why are we restricting our educational time? And I wish it was a joke, but it's not. And I care about my kids' education. What happened last year was terrible, but it's over. And if we want to change the time for having a week off for fall break, that may make sense for next year. As long as we keep the time at the end of the schedule or get rid of other holidays, those are all reasonable things to do. I mean, I work, I got to put in 2 weeks' notice before I take my vacations. You guys aren't even giving us that amount of time. I just wish that we would have more consideration in these sort of things and possibly add weeks on the end of the schedule if we're going to actually take off time right now, because I want my kids to have the best education they possibly can have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bartley. Madam Clerk, do we have any additional cards?
No, sir.
We have no additional cards, and we will close our public comment portion and move on to item 3, which is our action item. Dr. Parker, I believe you have a calendar update recommendation for us today.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We're bringing forward for you this evening a calendar recommendation based on our communication with staff and our building level leadership. Our calendar committee was convened to look at possible ways to improve teacher planning time over the course of this year based on the needs of our staff, as well as addressing the critical shortage of teachers and or substitutes in our school division. The schedule before you this evening we feel will allow staff add the quality time for planning to improve in-class instruction when classes meet. Additionally, suggested days for that are proposed in the calendar will align with nearby school divisions where staff live, which would further compound problems if those folks were required to work during those days as well. But we also are providing the needed wellness days for our staff. Mrs. Brooks will provide an overview of the calendar adjustments and the implications for meeting state requirements in terms of instructional hours. Mrs. Brooks?
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, members of the board, and again, Dr. Parker. This evening, I would like to propose adjustments to the current school year calendar for your consideration. Now, while this school year has started in a traditional way with students attending in person 5 days a week, as weeks went by, the school year became very different from what we would consider as our norm. Because of this, our leadership team came together to look ahead to the second quarter and beyond to plan much needed support for our students and staff. So why are these calendar adjustments needed? Many of our students are still facing the residual effects of school closures due to COVID-19 and our need of additional supports. In order to best meet the needs of students, our teachers require more planning time to develop effective lessons, classroom assessments, and remediation activities. Like many school divisions across the country, COVID-19 quarantine protocols have led to staffing shortages for substitute teachers in our classrooms, for bus drivers, our child nutrition services employees, and staff in other departments who are taking on additional duties to ensure that our students' needs are being met. So to address these challenges, we are proposing several adjustments to the current school year calendar that we believe will allow our staff to better serve our students and our families. The first adjustment we're proposing will be for Monday, November 22nd and Tuesday, November 23rd, which are currently designated as school days. They will become much needed wellness days for all students and staff. In addition, Wednesday, November 24th, a planned half day for 12-month employees will become a holiday. As we enter 2022, Monday, January 14th will become a full virtual learning day for students with teacher professional development in the morning and planning time for teachers in the afternoon to prepare for end of the semester supports for our students. In February, we are proposing to use Thursday, February 3rd and Friday, February 4th for something new this year as midterm intervention days, which we are calling a winter reset for students who have been identified through assessments for structured remediation. Schools will have the flexibility of planning their support efforts. Only students who are identified for remediation will report to school on those days. Students who remain at home will be provided assignments or review work. On both days, students will have in-person learning in the morning and teacher planning time in the afternoon. In March, Wednesday the 16th will be a half-day dismissal for students with in-person instruction in the morning and independent learning for students and teacher professional development in the afternoon. In April, Friday the 1st will become a full virtual learning day for students with teacher professional development in the morning and planning time for teachers in the afternoon. Our last adjustment will be on Wednesday, April 20th, which will be a half-day dismissal for students with in-person instruction in the morning and independent learning for students and teacher professional development in the afternoon. Now, the designated days are intended to provide teachers with additional time for planning lessons, for reviewing and developing assessments, for providing remediation to support students, and participating in professional development. The calendar changes that I shared will allow staff the time needed to address student learning loss due to COVID-19 protocols while continuing to exceed the requirements for instructional hours set by the Code of Virginia. And in determining the proposed calendar adjustments, we work to balance the instructional needs of students with the preparedness of teachers and staff. We realize that these changes will require our families to adjust their schedules, so our goal was to provide notification to our families as soon as possible so that they may plan accordingly. We hope our families will understand and support our efforts to meet the overall needs of our students and staff. I will leave you with this visual representation of the revised calendar, and we are asking for your approval of the calendar with the designated adjustments that I just shared with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. All right. At this time, can we have a motion to approve the action item, the item 3.01, school calendar update?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion to approve the updated school calendar as presented.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ely. All right, now time for discussion and questions. I'm sure that some of you do have some questions or comments. Yes, Dr. Betts.
I had comments. Thank you, Ms. Brooks. So, my comments. Sometimes the simplest things are the most complicated things, such as changes to the school calendar. So we know that teachers are working very, very hard. They're working, filling in for vacancies, for unfilled substitute positions, to accommodate maybe short staff, being short staff for resource classes, and just pretty much whatever that they're asked to do. And we commend them for that. For our parents, we know that parents are working hard to help their students as best they can. They really, I think most parents appreciate even more the job that teachers have to do, because for the last 20 months it's been kind of unconventional as far as educating their children is concerned. And they realize that it takes special kind of people and it takes a special skill set to be a good teacher. And so I think that is one of the things that this pandemic has brought to light as well. For children, we know that, and we knew it before the research said it, that children do better when they are in front of teachers. We knew that before, because what teachers do is very, very important. And again, I said it takes a special type of person, it takes a special kind of skill set. We also know that when students are out of school, that they have suffered academically, that they have suffered socially, and that they have suffered emotionally. And then you have staff such as bus drivers and other type of support staff people that are filling in every facet, in every way that they can as well. When we take students out of school, again, parents have to get additional child care and things like that. But also we have staff that are hourly employees, and hourly employees don't get paid when they don't work. But also we have parents that are hourly employees, and when they have to take off to take care of their children, they don't get paid. And we have many parents that fall into this dilemma. And also some of their pay is not very high, and they may make $50, $75 a day. Some people are very blessed, and $50 or $75 won't make a difference in their life, but for many people, that can change your life dramatically as far as food, as far as housing, as far as heat and air. So I'm saying all that to say that although it seems simple, and we truly appreciate you, Mrs. Brooks and Dr. Parker and staff, for coming up with ways of coming up with days that you think will address some of the needs of our students, especially, and needs of our division. For me right now, I would like to suggest, and I guess I'll have to make a motion, Mr. Chair, properly. And can I say what I'm going to suggest?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
yes.
So I would just like to suggest for right now, and this is simply all that I'm saying, is that we would vote as to the change for the November change in the school calendar. The other changes are for 2022. And I'm going to make a motion that we possibly table that until possibly one of the next meetings, just to let us just step back for a minute and just take a breather and look at it again. I'm not suggesting any other changes or anything like that, just to vote on the November dates and just table the other changes. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
All right, so Dr. Besser, you've made a motion. I understand you, in your motion is to table, you're amending the main motion, you want to table changes, the recommended 2022 changes until a later time, but we will still bring forward the 2021 changes. Is that
Correct.
Okay. All right, is it okay? So a motion has been made to amend. Is there a second on that motion to amend?
Second.
Okay. The second by Mr. Harris. All right. All right. So then we'll continue discussion on this amended motion, and that's what our vote will be on that amendment to pass the amendment, and then we'll go back to the main motion. All right. So any further discussion or questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Ely.
This is a comment. I definitely appreciate the staff for taking the opportunity to create this schedule. I do know how a lot of educators or friends, they're at the point where they're drained, they're tired, They're trying to catch up from 2 years. I talked to one teacher yesterday. She said, Mr. Ely, I haven't had no time after work with my little kids and my family, neither on the weekend, because I'm doing professional development. I'm trying to catch up, and I feel like I'm losing myself. She said, I love Newport News, I love teaching, but I'm afraid I'm gonna have to find another profession because I'm losing my family. So when teachers tell me stuff like that, it makes me feel like, wow, I just broke down and cried, like this just terrible times to me. And she said, we're playing catch up. She said, I'm a third grade teacher and I'm teaching kids who can't read and write. She said, I'm a strong teacher. I've been teaching for 20 years. But she said, this is the hardest it's ever been. She said, I'm not looking for an easy way out. I just want some time so I can take care of my family, my well-being, my health. So I feel like if we don't take care of our staff, their well-being, their health, we might not have any teachers, because like the teacher told me, how many other teachers are feeling the same way where they're looking for another profession. Teachers are smart. They're smart individuals. So it's not like they can't get a job somewhere else. So I feel like if we don't listen to what our teachers are saying, our staff is saying, we all get the emails. We may want to come up with all these rules that teachers may not need days off, or, well, we might not have any teachers if we don't listen to teachers. And it's not just the Newport News issue. It's not a Hampton issue. This is an issue all across Virginia, all across the United States. Just even talking to my teachers, he teaches in Fairfax County. Strong teacher. She's tired. She said, my husband make $180,000 a year. I ain't coming back next year. She's drained. So I feel like we need to listen to our teachers. Mental health is very important, and something we can't take lightly of teachers and our children. So I feel like even with our children coming back, they're coming back, it's not the norm from them. You got kids that went virtual 2 years now in school, third graders. So we just have to look at the whole process of it. It's a time where the days that our children are home, they get the extra care they can. They get that self-wellness. So I'm definitely in support of the new schedule. And I do understand what Dr. Best saying, maybe even looking at 2022. But I definitely think the days that we have in place to give teachers and staff and children a break are definitely needed, because if we don't look at those extra mental health days, 2022, we may be less teachers, less bus drivers than we already have. Thank you.
Yes. So yes, Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't speak a whole lot lately, but in this point I will. The staff has put a lot of time in this calendar, right? We discussed that before. That if we go back and only approve this, that means that's another meeting that we have to come back again. And I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. So if we're exhausted, the teachers have to be exhausted. If the teachers are exhausted, we know administration is exhausted. And so we're going to just approve just this month. The gentleman was just saying that he needs more than 2 weeks to plan for vacation. We're giving a calendar for the remaining of the year so our parents can plan. This is hard work. It's not going to get any better. We're going to take time again from our staff to go back and review calendars again. They've taken this calendar and they've looked at it in the entirety for a whole entire calendar year. This is how we plan. We don't typically plan month at a time or 2 months at a time. We plan for a whole year. This is important. We hear it. And it's not just us. They're paying 300% pay for flight attendants to work from Monday until the end of the year. I mean, I work at the university. We're short everywhere. It is hard to keep them, and we need to show that we have confidence, not only in our staff, but in our teachers, that we can put a plan together, not to go back wishy-washy and come back again and change the plan for just 2 months from now. That's not good board policy. It's not good board policy. It's not good board policy. And I'm saying this, we must stick together. We must listen to our teachers. I'm telling, I have educators in my family. They're exhausted. I'm exhausted. We have to take this calendar, either approve it or don't approve it. But I don't want to come back here to look at another calendar 2 months from now or a month from now. I think we're doing a disservice to those who put all this time in, their work, that they would have to do something else away from advancing kids just because we, this board, just want to go back in this month. If it's not next month, someone's not going to like something for the following month. And we'll be here every month or every other month changing the calendar. That's not our role. That is not our role. Don't complicate this. This is already complicated. We're already exhausted. I'm listening to the parents out there. I hear you. I do hear you. I understand that, people, it's tough, but let's get a calendar that we've presented to us so that those parents who need to take off, or maybe they can find arrangement a month or 2 months lead down the road, that they can plan for this, that they can plan for it. Not for us to come back in December and say, no, we're going to scratch that day, or no, we're going to scratch that day, because a lot of folks have to put in time a month ahead of time. So I beg you, I beg us, absolutely beg us, to accept the calendar that's put forth to us. And so our teachers and our administrators can get back to doing what they're supposed to do, is ensuring that the students get the best education they can. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Okay, Ms. Amon, I believe you were next.
Thank you. I thank everybody for working hard on the schedule. And as we've heard this evening, and to your point, Dr. Best, students learn best when they're in school and get in-person instruction. And I've been on the phone and emails with parents and families all day today and some days prior, and there is strong concern with the proposed changes that parents may not have the time to make the necessary changes for the upcoming 2 off days, depending on the notice they have to put in, and or some have had children quarantine once or twice. They may be up against I don't have any more paid time off, and that may make a big difference. And we're coming to the end of the year, and a lot of those, some of their benefits may be, a January to December. So we're kind of getting in the crunch time as far as they're concerned. And I know there are also some whose students have been home and
any time they can get in school learning is huge. I also know teachers are beyond exhausted, and I think we've gotten some really good suggestions, and we're doing some good things, some things creative with central office staff stepping in to maybe be substitutes and getting some of the CNU students. And I would encourage us, regardless of days off, to keep those types of things, the extra professional development, the extra meetings. You read some of the comments we've gotten as far as when teachers have planning periods, the meetings those are filled up with, how much they actually can plan versus having to do it at home. I would encourage us to look at pushing as much as is not 100% essential, maybe to the summer. Maybe we have some pandemic funds. Maybe we can look at if teachers or staff want to do some of this extra professional development in the summer, or additional time when we're not in the center of the year focusing on getting these kids back up to speed. Maybe we can do some extra incentive payments, or if it's above and beyond their contracted time. But I think we've all talked about how focusing on the essentials and seeing how we can bring some of the students that have fallen behind up to where they need to be, just to even learn what they need to learn this year, or maybe what they needed to learn next year. I'm very concerned at taking extra days off. I'm concerned it's sort of a Band-Aid versus if we can look at some more ideas to alleviate the just systemic week after week demands on our teachers. That may go even further. So what I've been hearing from family members and students is more that maybe look at some of these more systemic, ongoing changes versus the kids learn best when they're in school, and we're looking at 2 more days off. And to the point of the additional changes, if we do go back to revisit it and review it, I was just noticing it seems that we're putting in 4 more possibly half days, and I know that's a big strain on transportation, some additional remote learning days. So to the extent we did anything, I would encourage us to try to not make as much back and forth transportation, but either in person or not in person. But I think for the kids that are behind and for the families that don't have options, this is a really tight turnaround for Thanksgiving, and that's 5 days without the 2 days. So the feedback I've been getting is more of a concern about it. There are other things we could do that might even be more impactful to alleviate the stress and make this a great place to come back to next year for staff retention.
Thank you, Ms. Salmon. All right. Mr. Harris.
Just a small comment. I guess the good thing about this is my esteemed colleague to the right only made a suggestion, which was my first time hearing it. Here's some discussions about, maybe, changing a schedule or whatever the case may be. But, the good thing, we haven't took a vote on it. And so, we go through a process like this, which is great, because it's sometimes always best to get alternative suggestions. And especially in this area, and I say this only because she's my colleague, Dr. Best, I think has probably the most experience on this board when it comes to teaching, scheduling, and things of this nature. And so thank you for the suggestion, whether it passes or don't pass. I think it only does the board good to hear suggestions like this. And so I appreciate that. And the bottom line is, as a leader, you can't take care of no one unless you take care of yourself. There's a myth that have always circulated in the leadership sphere that, 25 hours a day, 7 days a week, me as a leader, I'm doing my job. No, you're not. In all actuality, you're harming the unit or whatever the case may be that you lead. So you have to be able to take care of yourself first in order for you to take care of someone else. Now, there's a lot of smart people in this division, and I'm not one of them when it comes to things like this right here. But what I do know is that once you go down the road of a culture, and the cultures are normally created, very easily, slowly. Once a culture develops, and I see one developing, and I say it publicly, that people are stressed out. Stress, it crosses all genres. People are stressed out, and sometimes we have to make decisions to try to get ahead of something or play catch up. I don't get phone calls about things like this. But the last month, I've gotten a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails. People might call me and complain about, something, but it's never been about, a culture of a place. It's never been, and I've been on this board since 2016. And so whether we have our finger on the pulse that leaders, instructors, administration, somehow, some way, whether it's phased in, whether it's done all at the same time, which is probably not a good thing, but somehow we need to relieve some stress and pressure. And I know that's gonna sometimes apply that to families and children, which is where the tough decisions come in. So how do we do that? And I think that's where, we have a superintendent to figure that out. And I hope there are people in the administration that is giving them alternative answers. And I hope Dr. Parker is listening to the administration, whether there's answers that doesn't sound right or doesn't fit his philosophy, maybe. But in order for us to overcome this, we are going to have to sit down and make some tough decisions, and everyone's voice is going to have to be heard. Everyone. So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that, and I don't get ruffled around the feathers about too much because, things come and things go like fads. But a culture can do the most damage that's unseen because people begin to act on the way they feel, and people don't remember how you made them feel. Whether it's today or 20 years ago, okay? So whatever we do, and Mr. Gary, thank you for your passionate, statements, because you've always been a passionate person. I've learned a lot from you on the board, and I think that keeps us on our toes and keeps us motivated. But I always follow the will of the board, whatever that may be. And Mr. Chairman, I think, had an opportunity either to table that motion, which he could have by Robert Rules of Order if he wanted to, okay, but he chose to let it go forward. So whether somebody didn't second it or whatever, so that was my position on seconding, so that this conversation could be had, or voted up or down today. So, I just want to appreciate all the hard work that you all do, because I know it's not tough. I mean, I know it's not easy, but I just want to make sure that leaders are taking those suggestions from sometimes people that may not align with your views. Whether it's the teacher making suggestions to the principals up to the administration, or whether it's the janitor, making a suggestion to our clerk. Okay, people have great ideas out there, all right? And they always don't come from, us that sit here at the diocese. They always don't come from the administration. Sometimes they come from just the person that's probably had some experience somewhere in their life about stress management, and things of this nature. And all the answers are within this division. They're not contracted out somewhere where somebody come in and go, hey, I think you need to do this. I think we have the answers right here in the division, okay? And this is one of these stress points in a community or whatever the case may be. But we can be successful as long as we are effectively communicating with one and another. All right? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. All right, Madam Vice Chair.
All right. I think I'm pulling up the rear here. I want to thank Dr. Parker and his team, for thoughtfully presenting adjustments to this year's school calendar. We all feel the stress, and we all feel the pressure of what we've been going through. And like Ms. Zaman, I have really heard a lot from the community on this issue. I've heard a lot from teachers who really are at their wits' end. And it's not because they just want a break. They want the opportunity to do what's best for their students, have time to plan and assess, have time to sit in groups with other teachers and talk about best practices and what they're seeing in their classroom to perhaps help another student in another classroom. So I don't want it to come off as though they're just so throwing their hands up and just want to go home and put their feet up. it really is because they are continuing to want to do what's best for their students. That being said, you do have to take care of yourself to do that, and we have to look at whether it's quality versus quantity. And yes, we know contact hours are important, but each and every one of us knows too, if you're not at your best, if you've pulled an all-nighter, the last part of your work is not, in fact, you might spend time having to do it over. And we don't want that circumstance for our students either. We don't want them to have to watch wellness be put on the table and off to the side, because the time is going to come when they feel the same pressure that they're seeing their teachers and their parents go through. And so we need to make sure we are modeling wellness, for our students as well. I am eager to learn the benefits of the winter reset. I'm very excited about that. It seems to have some very promising opportunities for both students and for teachers as well. The challenging and the frustrating part of this is, as Mr. Harris said, somebody has to absorb the change. And I know that that's going to ultimately be on our families and on those who need to be able to work and cannot, to Dr. Best's point. So that makes this, what seems like a simple decision, challenging. But I think the important thing that we're all displaying here is that these decisions were not made lightly. They were with great consideration. Are they going to be a one-size-fits-all? Absolutely not. But at the same time, we're doing exactly what our speaker implores us to do, and that is to do what's best for our students. And this is an important step towards that end. So the last thing I want to say is that I have really enjoyed serving with this board. I enjoy the dialogue that we have because we look at the same issue from so many different lenses. And this one, bar none, has been in that exact same position. And what we have found is that on each of us on the board, different people contact us in terms of what their concerns are. And for us to be able to dialogue like this and share what those interactions have been makes us that stronger, and it makes what we need to vote on that much more specific. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity.
Well, we're going to proceed with we're now going to proceed with the vote on the amended motion, and then there'll be time for further comment on the main motion, if that, depending on how that turns out. So I just want to remind everyone that right now we're voting on the amended motion. The amendment to the motion would be to defer all changes, all 2022 changes to the school calendar update as presented by the superintendent, his recommendation. That's the amended motion that we're getting ready to vote on. And I'll just make my own comment about the amendment to the motion is that, like as we all said, we've heard from a lot of people, heard from the public, and heard from staff and from teachers. And what I think, in my personal opinion, that the division needs, especially from this board right now, is stability. So I do think that having only a few months of a calendar as opposed to being able to pass a full calendar presents, as Mr. Harris was talking about, a culture would present a culture of instability for the public and our teachers and staff. It's very important, as we know, we've all heard, people do want to be able to plan ahead. They do want to be able to look at a calendar and see where everything is. And that's what the superintendent did, actually sharpen pencil before he came to the board, as we all had a chance to hear his recommendation prior to tonight. He really did go out and sharpen the pencil. The calendar committee went out and did research and work to look at, okay, let's look at the entire year and let's make sure that we've captured all of the days that we would possibly try to have additional adjustments. and let's maximize, so that an optimization was done on the calendar that was presented to us tonight to, within the state requirements, give us the best calendar going forward that was going to provide for. We've talked about letters, making sure that we get the letters training done, making sure that we can catch students up who have fallen behind during COVID learning. So all of that care and effort has gone into this full calendar, and I do just personally believe that if we can't do a full calendar night, it will reflect negatively on the board that we can't provide that stability to the public in that way. So that's my personal opinion. But with that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? So a vote in favor would be a vote for the delay and to pass half of a calendar. A vote against would be against the adjustment, and then we'd go back to the main motion. If this motion failed, we'd go back to the main motion. Right.
Mr. Chairman, may I state the motion?
Yes,
for
please.
clarity? So I have to vote on the November dates on the calendar and table other dates in 2022 on the proposed school calendar.
That's correct.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
All right, and I have a motion by Dr. Best and seconded by Mr. Harris. Searles Law,
Against.
Mrs. Amon,
Against.
Dr. Best,
For.
Mr. Ely,
Against.
Mr. Harris,
Against.
Mr. Hunter,
Against?
Mr. Brown.
Against.
Motion fails 6-1.
Okay. So at this time, then now we're back to the main motion, and I will open it back up again. I believe some folks wanted to make some additional comments. Dr. Best, did you want to make an additional comment?
Yes, I just wanted to have some clarification. So we walk away, the record will reflect. There is no tired, like teacher tired. So I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that in any form or fashion have I negated or downplayed that the tiredness of teachers, because sometimes the message gets lost in the translation. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. I also didn't ask for a change in the calendar. I asked that we just voted for November, so I did not ask for a change in the calendar. I want the record to reflect that as well. And then number 3, in response to Mr. Hunter, I was not asking for any extra meetings as well. We meet next week, and we also meet December, so I was not requesting any extra meetings. I just want the record to reflect those things. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Best. Any other further questions or comments, further discussion?
Yes, I have one, Mr.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Harris. Yes.
And I think this may be the most I've spoken this month. The bottom line is I want to ensure that the culture is geared towards leaders and everyone taking care of themselves. Okay, I only speak like this because of, yes, I fall back on a lot of military service, and I still see the effects, even after being retired 15 years ago, of people leaders that did not take care of themselves, young soldiers that didn't take care of themselves, and people committing a lot of suicide. You know, it's something I live with on a daily basis, either knowing someone, have known someone, or individuals that still struggle with stress. Whenever you think that you are doing enough for stress, you're not doing enough. The environment has to allow for people to express themselves, not disrespectfully, but to express themselves. Because once that happens, then the culture begins to change. And when the cultures change, you don't get as tired as often. And thank God for our teachers, but you know, they can go that extra or second mile. Okay, this organization is no different from any other organization. There's no different. You know, we take our most precious commodity, which is our youth. Okay, so it is just as important, if not more important, than the environment I've been in all my life. But what I do know, if you do not take care of yourself, or not allowed to take care of yourself, it's only going to harm the kids. I don't speak on this often, but I've received a lot of phone calls, Mr. Chairman, about this. I'm not as vocal as much, but I've been in an arena where this it's not a problem. Just let's keep moving, let's keep moving, let's keep moving, let's keep moving, and all of a sudden we look back and go, what happened? Where did the wheel fall off at? Okay, so I don't know how it's going to be done. Whether I guess to start with actually being honest with the communication. Yeah, I feel bad. I don't feel good today. I'm not feeling up to it. Whatever the case may be, do we have resources to, I guess, increase our support teacher bank or whatever the case may be? Are we going out using the programs such as Truth to Teachers? Where we have a plethora of young folks on Langley and the Navy and in the Army, that's looking for a job probably. Those folks can be converted to teachers just as easy because they know how to deal with stress. So, I just want to make sure that we are putting the best foot forward and making sure we create an environment that is a successful one. Everybody's not going to be pleased, which is not a problem, but I think when people understand, right, the old saying in the Army is, you can be hard as long as you're fair. People will accept that. People will, pick up that mantle and they will go execute. So I just want to make sure that we're monitoring our climate and we're making sure that, we're creating a place where, and it starts at this board, creating a place that, keeps people motivated and things of that nature. And that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Any further comments? All right. There being no further comments or discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on the main motion, which is the superintendent's recommended adjustment to the 2021-2022 school calendar?
Okay. Searles Law,
For.
Ms. Amon,
Against.
Dr. Best,
For.
Mr. Ely,
4.
Mr. Harris,
4.
Mr. Hunter,
4.
Mr. Brown.
4.
Motion carries 6-1.
All right. I want to thank the board for the time and effort that I know that we all have put into this, and I recognize that we are all stressed as we and so the public should know that we're stressed as well. But hopefully the public got to see tonight that we definitely this board very much cares and did not enter into this decision lightly. This was not a trivial decision for us, and we tried to make sure that we got the information to you as quickly as possible, which is why we called a special meeting as early as we possibly could. All right, so with that, we have no further business. We stand adjourned.